everybody, welcome back to Chitting. I'm Jason and welcome to the shed. So why are we in the shed today? Well, seed potatoes have arrived and I ordered these at the beginning of January from Marshall's. Ordered them online and we've got early and main crop potatoes here. And what I'll do is actually use, we basically bought Charlotte for early potatoes and I will use those for second earlies as well. So there's one bag of Charlotte. We've actually got 3 of those because we grew Charlotte the last few years, and last year they were amazing. They were absolutely fantastic, just grown in the ground here. So we've got 3 bags of those, one of which I'm going to chit, which we'll go through in a minute. For main crop we've got pink fir apple, which I've not grown before, so I'm going to enjoy doing that. We have got Maris Piper and King Edward. And you can't beat King Edward for roasts, jackets, mash. It just does everything, doesn't it? It's probably the best potato in the world, in my opinion, that is, of course. As an all-round potato, it's brilliant. Make chips with it. Oh, it's great. But the Charlotte potatoes, new potatoes, early potatoes, whatever you want to call them, they were really good last year. Just a knob of butter, or just slice them up and fry them. It was absolutely brilliant. So the main crop potatoes, which is, as I've said, pink fir apple, King Edward and Maris Piper, are staying in there. The Charlotte, I'm going to put 2 bags back in the box, and this box I'm going to close up and leave it over there, something heavy on it, or something somewhere, I'm sure, bag of nails, so that no light is getting in there. It's going to be cold in this shed, no matter, well, it's going to be as cold as it is outside, and the whole point of that is I want to slow down the potential of them sprouting and just hold them back a little bit. I could put them in the fridge, but we don't have room in the fridge, so that's what's going to happen. I'll come down and check them every few days. Obviously rodents are a potential risk. I'm sure they'd love to get in there and start munching on our seed potatoes. However, so the last bag of Charlotte I'm going to chit, and there's loads of videos on the internet about chitting. I'm not going to go in massive detail. It basically is a way of getting the potato to grow short sprouts that you can then plant out, and it saves you a bit of time basically, because when you plant the potato it is already started to sprout. Now this bag, this will be the first bag that I sow, and I will be sowing these in pots, so 40 litre, 35 litre pots in compost. And the reason I'll be doing that is I'm going to probably sow these around the end of February, depending on the weather. If it is still really cold, then I won't do it, but if it's warming up and it looks like it's going to be fairly warm for the time of year through March, then I will put these in pots around the end of February, beginning of March. So to try and get them to chit a little bit for 3 or 4 weeks is not a bad idea, because it means that they'll grow a little bit quicker when I do plant them. And the reason I will be putting these in pots is so that if the weather does turn again, there's going to be hard frost or anything like that, I can just bring them in the shed for those few nights. So to chit your potatoes, all you need is a tray of some sort, and you're basically looking at the potato and seeing where there are some eyes. Now you see here, you've got these little sprouts forming. They are very tiny. I'm going to put those facing the light. I'm just going to stand it up in the tray. Same with that one, and that's all it's about. All you are doing is putting the potato in a position where it can form sprouts and grow towards the light. Now you want to do this in a cool room, unless you want to plant them soon. You need to do it in a cool room, the shed being perfect, and they need to be in the light. So by this window, in the cool, and what that'll do is it'll allow them to grow small shoots, but slowly. I don't want these, if I was to leave these in the house in the light, they would be growing shoots in days, and by the time I came to plant them they'd be up here and it'd be no good. You want small, strong, stocky shoots. So that's what we're going to do. Now these have only just arrived, and I would say that these have been in cold storage most of the year, last year, you know, from sort of springtime, and they've hardly got any shoots on at all. If you were to go to some of the shops that sell potatoes, like say Wilkinson's or somewhere, in another few weeks they'll probably all have sprouts on them, and they'll be growing through the nets, and that's because they're in the light and they're in the warm. And we'll put that one that way. A lot of people use egg boxes for this. I find if as long as you stand them up properly, they'll be absolutely fine. And of course you're going to come down and check them and, you know, move them around a bit if need be. So just keep an eye on them. Now one thing you do have to be very careful of is, if we're going to get really cold temperatures, you need to move these if you're keeping them in a shed like I am, because if it dropped below freezing in here and these potatoes froze, they've had it, they're no good. So it's important to protect them from freezing temperatures. And that is really all there is. And you don't have to chit. You don't. I could leave these as they are and plant them in a pot and they would grow, but it would take just a bit longer for the sprouts to emerge. And if you get any that are like that, where it's been cut, try it anyway. Years ago my mum would do a vegetable gardening, and she would get seed potatoes and she'd cut them into 2 or sometimes even 4 if it was a big potato, and then chit them just like I'm doing on the windowsill, and each part of the potato would grow and produce sprouts. And I believe that that goes back to the war, when potatoes were hard to come by, and therefore people would divide them up to get the most seed potatoes and in turn get the most crop. And that is all there is to it, really. And I'll keep my eye on these, see how they're getting on. Make sure that no rodents get into them. And that's that. So that's going to be my first sowing planting of potatoes in a few weeks. And I'm going to be running a bit of a potato experiment, I think, but I'll tell you about that later when we do the video. So if you've got your seed potatoes and you've been to the shop and bought them and it's too cold now, you can't put them in most of the UK anyway, certainly where I live in Shropshire. If I was to put potatoes in the ground now, nothing would happen and they'd probably rot. It's just too cold for them to do anything. So if you've got your seed potatoes and you've got them sat in the kitchen or somewhere like that, move them somewhere cold and light. Take them out the net, because if you leave them in the net and you hang them somewhere in the cold and the light, what will happen is they'll start to grow sprouts, but the sprouts will grow through the net, and then when you're trying to get them out, you snap them off, and just take them out and put them in a tray. Just look at the potato, where's the most eyes, where's the most sprouts going to come from, and put that facing the light. There is actually a right way and a wrong way of a potato, but I've never bothered. I just plant the potato with the eyes or the chits or the sprouts facing upwards, the most eyes, because sometimes you'll get some here and here. We'll just go with the most. If there's more on this end, put that facing upwards. That's all I do. So thank you very much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed the video. If you have, please hit the like button. If you haven't already subscribed, please do. We've got a lot of videos coming up, lots of projects in the garden, lots of things that we're going to be growing and potting on and sowing and all sorts of stuff. So please subscribe and I'll catch you on the next one. Cheers.